Good evening, folks. And tonight, we're going to talk about what's going on in Cuba. We're actually going to go down memory lane with Cuba as well. Well, it really saddens me why most Americans, celebrities mainly, worship socialism, aka communism. I mean, they continuously say that it's better for us than what capitalism is. They say capitalism is dangerous. It's bad for us. Well, if it's so bad, then explain to me why we've succeeded for so long on capitalism. Since we became a nation, we've used nothing but capitalism. Now, as of Cuba was colonialized. Let's go down Cuba. Now, Cuba. What's saddening mostly about the whole thing? The people of Cuba the country's been a communist country. Well, let's take a rewind here and let's go down memory lane with Cuba. Cuba. Colonialized in 1492. Same year Christopher Columbus pretty much found America. And then several things occurred. I don't really know a whole lot about the history of Cuba, but I know that much. And then you go along, and then 3 years after the Civil War ends, the 10 Years' War occurs. 1868 to 1878. Between the country of Cuba and Spain. Spain, obviously, both sides technically claimed victory because neither side could really come up with the victory. Neither side really could claim a victory. Cuba claimed victory, yet Spain claimed victory, but neither really could come to a conclusive victory. Nobody really signed a peace treaty. It was a draw. So nobody really came to a victory. Inconclusive. No one even signed a peace treaty. 1 year later, Cuba fights again, beats out the Mexican, beats them out, beats out Spain, but Spain walks all over Cuba. From 1879 to 1880, that's a very short war. I can't remember the name of that one. Between Cuba and them, game over. Then we go on further down the road. Here we have war. Then just after that, 15 years later, in 1895, we have the Cuban War of Independence. And in 1898, then we have the Spanish-American War, which is part of the Cuban War of Independence. All that put into one. And sure enough, they end up sending the victory to the United States. The United States gets involved not necessarily because it was mostly fake news that got them involved. AKA, at that time, it was all mostly known as propaganda. It was mostly due to some kind of pressurized valve that exploded inside the main. That caused the explosion on the main. They chose to follow fake news propaganda over top of what they were. We were all for war. And sure enough, we got involved in the war, and we sent Spain packing. The colonialization period of Spain was over. Now, you might wonder, and then in 1902, Spain gets its independence from the United States. There wasn't a war or anything. We just said, hey, you can have your independence. Stability is going back into normal. They have an independence kind of like what we have. No regime, no nothing. But to them, what was it? From 1492 to 1898, they had a regime. To them, to some people, it was a regime. Why? Because they're being pushed around and they're getting sick and tired of it. And that's what these people are protesting on the streets today are doing. They are sick and tired of communism. The authoritarian morons are pushing them around and they're sick and tired, so they're pushing back. And then we go on to communism, to 1953, when the Cuban Revolution uprising began, with Fidel Castro being in charge. Then on January 1st, it was July 26th, this when it began. Sure enough, an uprising began. It was like a Cuban Civil War began, aka the Cuban Revolution. And then it began till January 1st, 1959. Then the war ended. That's how it all ended. So, and since then, they've been nothing but a communist country. Nothing but old vehicles are on that island of Cuba. Island country of Cuba. Nothing new about that country. If you look at all the other foreign countries, communist countries, all up-to-date vehicles, nothing old. But you look at Cuba, nothing but old vehicles. Old-fashioned, like 50s/60s. Nothing but old. I mean, I could go on and on about how old that equipment is. Heck, you could probably send troops over to that island. They'd probably shackle them right into first base. You could probably dive bomb. You could probably bomb that whole entire country to top the bomb before the war, before Russia even got involved. I mean, literally. That's literally how you look at it. But the main question is, back to this year, with all the communism going on. Where's Bernie Sanders? Where's AOC? Why aren't they talking about this? Oh, wait a minute, that's right. They're both communist. That's the problem. That's the problem we got here. We got corrupt communists who are in office right now. They want communism around here. And it's sad to see that Cubans are waving the American flag in their foreign country, and a foreign country are waving an American flag saying we want capitalism and we want liberty. They're saying we want liberty in Spanish. In their own country. They're sick and tired of this authoritarian kind of government, aka communism. They're tired of communism. How much more simpler does it get than that? It can't get any more simpler than that. They're tired of communism. It's that simple, people. The Cuban people that were on the streets in Havana were tired of communism. It's that simple. They've been living that way for 62 years. They're tired of it. And I don't blame them either. I would be sick and tired of living underneath a roof like that if I didn't care for it. But now, we go the other way now. Let's look at how was it before. They had it all made. They were getting a whole bunch of love, everything. But unfortunately, to them, they just weren't getting what they wanted. But it is what it is. Fidel Castro was in power for 50 years after he took the helm in 1959. 2009, he left. It's amazing how someone can keep power for so long. But it is what it is. And yet, here's another thing about that country. The Medicare for all, how's that working out down there? It isn't. You got people fleeing from foreign countries like Cuba coming up here to America to get away from that kind of authoritarian government. Same with Venezuela. And then you have to bring your own blankets to their own hospital beds in Cuba. You think they'd have that own supply itself? Apparently not. Which is what's sad about this government. It shouldn't be that way for that kind of government. That's not how it should be. It shouldn't be that way. But the way it all happens is when you go into another foreign country, it all comes down to another thing. When does it end? When does it all end? I mean, I could go on and on about when it all ends. I mean, the tyranny government, and yet Joe Biden is saying he's monitoring the situation very closely. What's he gonna do? Send troops in support of the Cuban government? In support of the communists? So sad. Donald Trump is the complete opposite. He would send support, and he would send troops in support of the civilians. And that's the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. Republicans are pro for people, while Democrats are pro-government. We the people of the United States is what the Republicans stand for, while the Democrats are all for we the government. And according to certain things, in Cuba you have no freedom whatsoever. Private property does not exist down there. Everything is open. Governments can walk on your property all you want. I mean, it is what it is. Your money is not yours. You don't own any money down there. It can be your money, but, however, they can take however much money you make, they make it for you. But AOC and Bernie Sanders, who are pro-socialism, obviously don't get it, do they? The people standing in the street say, why aren't they standing with them? They're all about, the Democrats are the party of women, but yet they're not standing for what about the women's rights down in Cuba? What about the people who are of the race theory down there? What about them? They're not standing with them, and they're being oppressed down there. This is what I don't get. They're totally silent right now. The Democrats are silent when it comes to them waving the American flag down in Cuba. But yet, the Democrats who burn the American flag here in the United States, they're silent there too. Sad, ain't it? It only benefits the left. They only talk if it benefits them. That's one thing we gotta think about here. They only do something if it benefits them. But if it doesn't benefit them, they don't want anything to do with you. That's how the left works. They'll decline you. They'll do anything they can to annihilate you if it doesn't benefit you. Cancel culture at its best. Because that's how communism works. And that's what's happening down in Cuba right now. If the civilians can grow up and get a militia together, amen. They can easily destroy their own government and recreate what it was years ago before communism occurred. And that's how I look at it. Well, with that being said, I'm out of here because I got things I got to do. Peace.